There's some breaking news to cover for uranium. A lot of people have not really seen the connection to this, but Kazakhstan, which produces 43% of the world's uranium through Kazatomprom, they're having issues with inflation, and now the tensions with Russia are rising. Now, if you followed my channel, you know that back in January, Kazakhstan had political unrest and they had these massive protests, and Russia had to come in to help them. So we can see that there are political tensions obviously going on because of Russia not getting the support it really wanted from Kazakhstan. Now, inflation is the real big issue here because inflation is not going down. Kazakhstan had 8% inflation in January, and we saw political unrest. We saw the same thing happen in 2016 here. With inflation in Kazakhstan, they had political unrest. Now, this time around, it was a lot worse. Russia had to come in with their CSTO troops, and they squashed the protest. Now, Russia has not been getting the support it needs from Kazakhstan. Now, Kazakhstan has $45 billion, okay, from the U.S. invested, 600 companies. Remember, this is 43 to 45% of the world's uranium production here. Chevron, Exxon, big companies are there. Russia has $40 billion that's invested in Kazakhstan. China, $20 billion. Germany, $5.8 billion. Because their assets, their energy assets to the world are very needed. And us going through an inflationary period, these prices are going to need to rise, especially in uranium. They were a low-cost producer, but there's a big supply disruption possibly coming. And we know that the speculation in January, the oil protesters were a big part of it in January. They were peaceful, but we could see the same thing with uranium, the same thing with protesters in uranium. Now, with food prices, energy prices going up there as well, we already see from 8% to 14% just in a few months. It's going to continue to rise. This is going to be, U.S. is having record inflation as well. We're going to see prices in oil and uranium go up. But if there is a supply disruption, this is very big for the uranium sector. We've been saying this for a long time, okay? Now, there are tensions between Russia and Kazakhstan. Now, Kazakhstan really wants to separate itself from Russia. Bloomberg reported on this. We saw a spike in uranium. They had said in this that, Bloomberg, that Kazakhstan is saying is taking all the necessary measures to prevent a destabilization of its production sites. It sees a high risk of a supply chain disruption that could limit access to materials. That's what this says here. So this is very possible to still happen. We see an inflationary environment like this. We see war. We see when there's continued sanctions on Russia. What is Russia going to do next? I really do think that this could be a long-term supply disruption if Kazakhstan not only has to find different routes to export its uranium, but they are doing this now with their oil because Russia has done the same exact thing in not letting them export their oil to the UK. Now, they said this was because of a mine that was found, mines that were found in around the port there. We can see here, this was the route you can see through here. And the thing is, there is also a report, but I think it is fake news. This is the fake news out there that Kazakhstan blocked 1,700 rail cars with Russian coal on its territory. I actually put this out there just a minute ago, not too long ago. It says reports about the delay of Russian wagons with coal by Kazakhstan are fake. Now, we don't know. This could be them putting this out saying it's fake when really it is real. But what are we looking at? Uranium stocks. Okay, uranium stocks, they are heavily discounted. I believe that money is going to still be entering into the U.S. markets, especially U.S. producers. I've been seeing a lot of people talk about this. They're looking to get rid of a lot of their explorers and developers and move over to bigger names in uranium. The producers that have these not only contracts, but they've got big cash balances. They've got usually little debt. They've always paid off their debt. Something like UEC, Energy Fuels. And these market caps are still very low, okay? Very, very low. I believe that we're going to see a nice run very soon with uranium stocks. Again, some of these discounts are getting pretty crazy. We're starting to see, 70, 80% discounts on some of these. And it's going to be an exciting week. Commodity prices today, gas, oil, both up. Oil's almost up 1%. And obviously, the U.S. market is closed for a federal holiday. So we'll see tomorrow how things are going to go. So we need to keep an eye on the political unrest in Kazakhstan to see if that comes back. Keep an eye on the inflation numbers. Now, I put this out there back in 2020, August, and this was what I said the uranium bull market's going to look like. We've kept coming back to this, and it really does start to seem that we might be in this first sell-off phase, this bear trap, because these institutional investors have came in, but some have sold. We've seen the ETFs somewhat sell down, and we're probably going to see media attention pick up when uranium stocks get more attention for holding their gains, which we've seen in the past couple months.
The URA uranium ETF topping the tape today, jumping 6% on reports that the Biden administration will push for a $4.3 billion plan to buy enriched uranium from domestic producers. It is the latest push to wean the U.S. off of Russian imports. Nuclear generates about 20% of the U.S.'s electricity, and yet we buy most of the uranium from abroad.
And again, enriched uranium. So, I mean, this type of legislative action, and we've been hearing this. We heard this from Energy Secretary Granholm. This is there's no question, and the term or the words urgently and some of these elements around where this is an agenda that I think cannot be ignored in the world order that we live in. Folks, you're not late to the uranium trade, and we've been talking about this for 6 months now. And if you look at a chart of CCJ, this is a chart that with a fair amount of volatility, because I think between outside of dedicated resource players and people that actually play uranium, this has had a lot of what we call tourist investors. But the volatility within that chart, it's a very impressive chart, and actually back above that 200-day.
I agree. It had a big day today. I think it was up, 8 or 9%. But you're getting an opportunity off this pullback to get into a space that still makes sense. To me, this is a secular shift. And if you think crude is going higher, which I do, I think Tim does as well, you almost by definition, I think you have to be in these names.
We saw UEC, we saw Cameco hit 11-year highs, obviously, and they're the leaders in the industry right now. So we could see this more media attention coming as the overall market. We've seen Bitcoin, stocks like that, cryptocurrencies have dropped. Some of them dropped to zero. So a lot of these investors got wiped out, and they're looking for something to invest in, and they'll compare something, say, a Bitcoin drop percentage for the year compared to, say, a uranium company. Those are going to start to get on mainstream news, I think, especially if we see another run in uranium prices. It's very possible in the U.S. markets we see a lot of bounces, a lot of rallies, even if we're in a bear market, a recession. And I'm doing that documentary, the uranium documentary. It's going to touch on a lot of important things. And the research that I'm doing, I'm finding some very interesting things. I'm actually releasing a lot of that into my Discord beforehand. A lot of this info, especially on Kazakhstan, I keep track of it 24/7. And I think that you're going to see big rallies in uranium, probably 20% uranium stock runs like we saw many times this year. It's probably going to happen again. Still very bullish on uranium. I'm massively heavy cash. Go check out some of my older videos. You can see ever since last year, January, February, when the markets were at their hype, even September of last year as well, I was saying that I was heavy cash. I think a market correction was coming. I did videos on a 2.0 market bubble crash, Michael Burry's 2.0 big short. And everything I said in those videos, you can go look back, has came true. And that is why I want to make this Uranium Documentary 3. Not only the record inflation we're having, but some very interesting things. 1970 uranium bull market that saw a record low to record high. I think we're going back there again. Record commodity prices. And remember, in an inflationary environment, in a recession, there are opportunities. These are where people make the most money. Things are on discount. The good companies will survive. The speculative explorer companies, the speculative tech stock companies that are at 100 PE ratio, they might not survive. But companies with permits, with uranium, with cash, these companies are going to do good. There's a nuclear renaissance, and it's going to get very exciting. Uranium has a very big possibility to hit new highs very, very quickly. This market is very small. Doug Casey said, when people want into uranium stocks and they want to get in, it's like taking all the contents of the Hoover Dam and putting them through a soda straw. That is going to be crazy when that happens. If you like this video, if you want to see the Uranium Documentary 3, let's get 1,000 likes. I want to see this video get 1,000 likes. I'm excited to put this video out there. So I'm going to be more motivated the more likes this video gets. Thank you so much for supporting this channel and covering uranium for the multiple years ever since the bottom in 2020. Those prices were a gift. Uranium is going higher. And until next time.